Hi guys, it is me, Jacqueline. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time here. For today's video, I will be recommending some of my favorite standalone novels. I realized I had so many on my bookshelf that I really want to read, but I also had a lot on my shelf that I really do love and appreciate. And I do love my series, but I really do want to reflect on the standalone books that have no companion novels attached to them, and it's just that individual work with those characters in that world, and just talk about it just because I do love standalone books as well. So if you guys have any you want to recommend, please list them off down below in the comment section, and also let me know if you would like to see any other recommendation video next. And let's get on to this one. So starting off with the fantasy standalone ones I have, just because I have less of those, I need to read so many other ones, including The Night Circus. I am currently staring at that book right there on my shelf. That is not a part of this video because I have not read that yet. Please don't kill me. But this first one is a very popular one, but one that I do feel like the hype is worth it. I do feel like this has a hype for a reason. It is one of my personal favorites, and that is Uprooted, and this is from Naomi Novik. This is a book that I read all the way back in 2016 and absolutely fell in love with it. I still remember my reading experience to this day, even though I read it sort of 4 years ago. It was one of those books that really did stamp itself and imprint itself in my mind. We follow a girl that is from a village that this wizard named Dragon protects from the woods, and because of that protection they actually sacrifice one of their females as a servant to him. So our main female character actually volunteers in a way to be his servant for that year instead of her friend, and that's kind of where the story takes off. I don't really want to say a lot when it comes to that, but I really appreciated kind of the magic system in here. I appreciated the characters in here, the romance that kind of grew and built in here, and I felt like this was one of those standalones that I can recommend wholeheartedly because it is just such a well-developed story. She just came out with another fantasy standalone novel that I believe is like a Rumpelstiltskin retelling that I really want to pick up just because I loved this one so much, and I know that she does fantasy retellings and standalones especially so well. We have another sort of reimagining, and that is The Forbidden Wish, and this is from Jessica Corey. This is actually a reimagining of Aladdin. So instead of the traditional genie, we actually have a female genie to Aladdin. So we follow our female genie in her perspective. She was one of my favorite characters and I loved following her perspective. I really enjoyed this standalone novel. It was so fun and the romance was so sweet, and our main character and her internal struggles, her complexity when it came to her gifts as being a genie. It was just such a fun experience. I hadn't really read anything like this, so I really enjoyed it, and I feel like if you want something that's fast-paced, fun, and addictive, this is definitely that. Plus our main female character is one that I absolutely adored. She was definitely my favorite character in this book by far. Next we have Unhooked, which is from Lisa Maxwell. Now this isn't one of my favorite books of all time, but it definitely is one of my favorite standalone books, and I feel like this is still one of those books that I would definitely recommend. I feel like after I reread it, the first round I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. And then the second round I think I gave it like a 4 or a 3.5. It's still one that I absolutely adored, and I fell in love with the experience just because I love Peter Pan, and this was actually personally my first Peter Pan retelling. But still, I really loved it. I fell through this world. I loved our male protagonist as well, and that dynamic between our two main characters and the struggles of it. I don't know, it was just such a fun experience. We have a dark Peter Pan in this, and we have an amazing Captain Hook, so I just really loved it a lot. I feel like this is one of those standalone novels that really had me hooked literally until the very last page. We have now moved on to the contemporaries. So the first one I have, I will also not really talk about too much just because this is a very popular one. It is The Sun Is Also a Star, and this is from Nicola Yoon. One of my favorite contemporary books, one of my favorite romances, but this just is one of those standalone novels that I think is so beautifully done. The writing style Nicola Yoon has is gorgeous. I feel like you really do fall into these characters' mindsets and really feel for them and their experiences, and it is one of those kind of like insta-lust, insta-love stories, but I think the overall journey with these characters and their separate sort of internal struggles as well as their struggles together just stands out so much more than that minor flaw, which isn't even a flaw because I feel like it almost flowed really well in this story. So this is kind of one of those like first love, first like lust when you see them, love at first sights that I actually like in a book, just because I feel like it makes sense. The next one I have is Bright Side, and this is from Kim Holden. This is another contemporary, but this is, you know, romance. We have a very heavy topic in here as well that is kind of developed, but I loved this one. I also loved our main female protagonist. She was one of my favorite. I loved the banter in here, but I loved the deeper sides when it came to these characters and the romance. It was beautiful the way it was developed. I just really enjoyed this book, and I definitely want to check out more work from this author just because this is one of my favorite standalones, but also like contemporary romance, all that stuff. The next story I have is Making Faces from Amy Harmon. This is a war story in which our male character actually went off to war and has come back, and he is the only person that when he left actually came back home. So it kind of deals with the element of loss, PTSD. The romance itself is beautifully done. The characters are beautifully sort of transcended well off the page. I just really appreciated how Amy Harmon handled a lot of elements in this story. Amy Harmon is just one of my favorite authors, period, but this is one that I definitely recommend. I have a lot of other recommendations from her that I love and books that I want to read just because I really do feel like her work is splendid. Moving along, we have Girl in Pieces, and this is from Kathleen Glasgow. This is a YA mental health self-discovery in which we follow our main female character who had previously self-harmed and is now trying to kind of live and find who she is as a person. I personally really enjoyed this story. I gave it a 4 to 5 stars. It wasn't perfect plot-wise. There were some elements that I didn't love, but I think from start to end, this is one of those stories that you really do follow when it comes to your main female character, her journey, and you root for her and you really see her grow. I also found that you could really tell our author had such a personal connection when it came to the topic of self-harm. We have so many different characters in this story that deal with different varieties or versions of self-harm, since self-harm is not really cookie cutter. There's so many different elements when it comes to that. It was just a story that I felt was very well done, and if you're looking for something that is on the heavier side when it comes to topics, but really does take you on such a journey, this is one I would highly recommend. The final book I have is Salt to the Sea, and this is from Ruta Sepetys, and this is an author that I've heard time and time before that her works are phenomenal, but this is actually more of a historical fiction. We follow 4 characters as they venture onto a boat, and it was just so emotional seeing all the different perspectives and seeing kind of the conflict and everything that happens. I was on the edge of my seat flying through this story, seeing what was going to happen next, and I remember crying so hard afterwards. This is one of those ones that I really do feel like is very impactful and heavy, so if you're looking for a hard-hitting one that is more historical fiction based and you follow an array of different characters, highly recommend this one. It was a very impactful standalone novel to say the least. So these are the standalone books I would highly recommend. Let me know if you have read any of these or if you are going to, and let me know if you have any recommendations you want me to check out myself or any videos you want to see when it comes to recommendations. Yet again, the romance one will be on its way, but if you want to see duologies, trilogies, all that stuff, just let me know, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!